Annette Campbell. June 2nd, last Friday, tragedy struck Colorado Springs. Quaylen Campbell, a father, a husband, a son, was taken tragically. He was just trying to do his job, working, provide for his family. He lived here less than a year. July been a year. He had moved from Georgia to Colorado Springs. Not only he was taken too soon from us, and I'm not going to get into the person who committed the crime or committed the act of killing him, but I also want to talk about another tragedy. A tragedy that the Colorado Springs Police Department, government, failed to respond. You know, you talk about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We mention that all the time. You teach your kids that when you learn the Declaration of Independence. And we emphasize life, because life is final. Death is final. You can't bring it back. And as police department, as police officers, the main thing you preserve is life. If a building burned, we can build again. If clothes tear, we can resew. We cannot bring back life. And when Talia made that phone call to the El Paso County Sheriff Office, related information, and that information was given again to the Colorado Springs Dispatch, her husband was in danger. He's being held hostage. Prior to a hostage situation, nothing takes higher precedent than hostage situation, because you're talking about the preservation of life. We talk about maybe an active shooter at a school. I know this community have dealt with that tragedy before, and police response. We're talking about preservation of life. Talia called 911. She had to respond almost 40 miles away, 40 minutes away, to see her husband. And she had to perform rescue operations, the first aid on her husband. Kevin, is this South Nevada here? Yes. Less than a mile away from here is where her husband was killed. Less than a mile. This is headquarters, precinct. I don't know what they were doing in there or not doing, but I do know they received that phone call. They confirmed it. Yesterday, they confirmed they received that phone call. And they're investigating what happened in the response, what happened in the translation when she told her husband was hostage. But we're gonna find answers. We sent over this morning an open records request, and Kevin can talk more about that. We want to know how many officers was available, how many officers was working that day, what calls took precedent. I understand the President Biden was here there before and provided protection. I'm sure they had a mass response to make sure he was protected, which we understand. But Quaylen life matters also. You can see the remnants, the aftermath. A hurt mother, a wife, children. I'm not gonna prolong my time, because it's somebody who can tell you what happened that day, who can tell the story from start to finish. That's his wife. And we're gonna take questions. I want y'all to hold questions. Kevin to come back and speak. But I want Talia to come and tell what happened on that day, and his mother she would like to speak as well. Take your time, Tony.
I received a text.
Speak up. Come on.
I received a text message from my husband pleading for help. In that message was also a picture of the suspect. Following the picture were the words, 911, please send help. And he also was able to send me his location. So I called 911 and I gave them a very descriptive idea of from my idea of what was going on. He was pleading for help. And I obviously wouldn't know for sure what is going on, but I stated that I believe my husband is being held hostage and I need someone to go check him. I gave them the exact address because he was able to provide me the location. I gave them the description of the man because I can clearly see it in the picture. All I wanted was for someone to check on my husband. There was no sense of urgency in her voice, so that didn't sit right with me. So I decided to drive to the location that he shared. In all of that time, from me talking with the police and driving to his location, took an entire hour. When I pulled up to the parking lot, I can see his car, and I started to immediately panic. I jumped out of my car. I left my car running, my door open. I didn't care. I wanted to see if my husband was okay. What I could see through the windshield was that he was slumped over. So I fell to my knees and I started screaming. And many other people started to crowd us because they could hear my scream. When we looked in the car, we could visibly see the other man in there as well with the gun in his lap. And everyone was afraid to open the door because we didn't know if he was maybe high on drugs, and if we opened the door that he may begin to start shooting us too. But I decided to open that door because I wanted to see if my husband may still be alive. I wanted to check to see if he had a pulse. I opened the door and I put my fingers on his neck. I couldn't feel anything. I put my fingers on his wrist. I still couldn't feel anything. So my uncle was the only one that was big enough to help pull him out of the car in a pool of blood. It was me that had to try to perform CPR on my husband in a pool of blood. I shouldn't have been the one. I shouldn't have been the one to have to do that.
As you can see, this is, like I told you, unspeakable tragedy. For her to have to respond and see her husband, some family was unconscionable. That's what we have law enforcement for. We have to ensure that the ones who taking an oath to protect us take adherence to that oath to protect and serve. Kevin. Kevin's going to talk about the response, the open records request that we sent this morning. Then we'll open up the questions, very, very brief questions. Have them talk about the response, the request that you made.
Sure. So, here a week out from this incident, this poor family is really without answers. They've got more questions at this point than they have answers, and that big one is, why did it take an hour? Why did it take more than an hour when this Wendy's it's less than a mile from here? You walk out on the sidewalk just right over there, you can see it. You can see it down this hill. For these police to get there for what was very clearly an extremely serious situation, something that nothing else should have taken priority over, yet it was Mr. Campbell's family who was the first on scene. We've sent off public records requests this morning.
And Kevin was in the meeting, and they acknowledged they received that phone call. So make no mistake about it. It's not a phone call. They acknowledged they received a phone call from Talia of the hostage situation. Right. So you can speak to that.
And Ms. Campbell was on the phone. She's not making that up. So we'll see. We'll see why that mistake happened. I mean, there's just no reason for that. That's a high crime area. There should always be a police presence there. In this sort of call, I mean, what's more serious than this? A hostage situation. And I think the other big question that this family's got is how a person like this ended up with a gun. You know, this is 2023. This is a year that has been, you know, epitomized by gun violence, and how this keeps happening, and how legal firearms keep ending up in the hands of folks like this. And you see the price that, you know, not taking care of that regulation is having. This poor family should definitely never have to go through this. No family should.
Okay. All right. We'll open up for some Q&A. Identify yourself, agency you're from.
Mr. Daniels, Melissa Henry with KKTV. I've talked to you before about your prior cases here. Are you filing a lawsuit on this case?
We're going to seek every legal justice for this family. If that means filing a lawsuit, invoking the Department of Justice or an outside agency to do an investigation, because currently Colorado Springs Police Department investigate themselves. I don't trust folks to investigate themselves. But we are seeking every possible redress to ensure not just, you know, justice for Quaylen and his family, that it don't happen to other people in Colorado Springs and Colorado. Make no mistake about it. This is a case. This case should not have determined if you're black, white, Hispanic, religious preference, sexual orientation. It doesn't matter. This affects all of us. This affects humanity. We call 911 with an emergency. We want the police to show up. We want them to show up. So yes, all redress, legal redress, we will pursue. I can't hear you.
When Ridstorf with Cardio, did the Campbell family know David Carroll's at all, the suspect?
No. Quaylen didn't know him. They didn't know him. He was, to my understanding, he was a transit that lived here for 7 years from Denver, Colorado. Had an extensive criminal record, different names, different alias, you know, and no, they didn't know him.
Is Quaylen the person that would ever pick someone up on the side of the road?
Quaylen's a good person. You know, that's a question that we would love to be able to tell, and Quaylen can tell, but unfortunately, we'll never know. So,
Mr. Daniels, Zach DePaul with the Gazette.
who you with?
The Gazette, the Colorado Springs Gazette.
Right. I like to put faces to names.
Yeah,
I remember
of course.
I spoke to a lot of y'all before.
This is the third time you've been down in Colorado Springs, specifically dealing with the Colorado Springs Police Department. What does that say in your mind about our local law enforcement here, specifically as it relates to
Well,
CSPD?
I saw a report today of the past, since 2010, crime is down in Colorado Springs. I think, Kevin, we had a police report, national police report. You know, Colorado Springs had one of the worst grades, especially disproportionate to African Americans in Colorado Springs. The demographic is not high for African Americans, but they seem to have the most use of force, allegation, unlawful use of force. The grade is very low. I mean, you can see from other cases that Kevin and I work on, and cases to come. You know, and I'm way over in Atlanta, Georgia. We do cases all over the nations, and people ask me, God, do you have an office in Colorado Springs? As much as we come in here. So hopefully the new mayor just got elected, came into office Tuesday, can look into it, and we can, you know, get some true transparency. You know, we don't want to come to Colorado Springs, you know, because we're not here. I mean, its government is functioning properly, but we seem like we're here a lot now.
Building off of that.
Hold on, let me get a.
Andy Cohen, KOAA News 5, and a question for you, Mr. Daniels. You had mentioned earlier that Ms. Campbell had contacted the El Paso County Sheriff's Office.
That's
So
right.
Did this take place outside of the city and then moved into?
Well, she was outside of the city when she made the phone calls.
I see.
So outside the city limits, you get routed to a particular 911 dispatch, and hey, this is within Colorado Springs jurisdiction. Let's transfer. She told them twice. She told the dispatch for El Paso County. They relayed information. So it was nothing lost in translation. They knew that this was a hostage situation, and those recordings will be coming out soon, and we will release them.
Building off of Zach's question about your recent visits to the Springs within the past year, I know your office is based in Atlanta, Georgia. Is there any reason why suddenly you're choosing to take on these cases on the other side of the country?
You know, so I was saying, injustice everywhere is a threat of justice anywhere. All right, it doesn't.
Like, do you have contacts here? I'm just curious why Atlanta to Colorado.
No, you know, I think the case that we may refer to, the first case we had was Davin Gasson, and that's been out in the community and showing other community people in this area that we're willing to come and fight for justice. And I think people see that, and they, you know, when things happen, they call. So it's nothing really special while we're here. So.
You mentioned that you had talked with law enforcement and potentially the district attorney's office yesterday. What have they had to say, and have they offered any sort of excuse or reasoning behind what happened?
Pretty typical answer. It's an open investigation. There were not a lot of specifics, not a lot of details given. They're looking into it. That's about as good as the family can get at this point.
And they mentioned that's an open investigation still. Do you have any idea or context as to what the investigation is still open into?
The who, what, when, where, why, all of that.
All right, thank you.
I heard Mr. Daniels mention that the president was here on Thursday of last week and that CSPD was a lot of the security for that. Was that just some thought in your mind that you thought was worth mentioning, or did they actually mention to you that that could have been a reason why their resources were depleted?
No, I mean, no, but the reason why I put it out there is that, response, obviously the President of the United States and law enforcement is going to be present. But in that same token, Quaylen's not the president, but his lives matter. All right, as Kevin stated, you go around this corner, you can see that witness from down this hill. So you're talking about less than a mile within eyesight where this incident took place. It's inexcusable. Make no mistake about it. There's no excuse. They can say whatever they want to say. They can make any excuse. It's inexcusable. No one should call law enforcement a hostage situation and it take over a damn hour to respond. It shouldn't happen in Colorado Springs, Colorado, anywhere in the United States. This is injustice. And not only the person who shot and killed Quaylen, they got blood on their hands also. Make no mistake about it. We feel strongly. Now, do we know for certain? But we do know that they didn't respond at all to her call. Make no mistake about it. They did not respond to her call for help for hostages. They responded to after shots been fired call. And about 20 or 30 cops showed up fast. So whatever they had going on, if they would have showed up before, we probably could not be here today. So that's my response to that.
Was Mr. Campbell, I know they were found in the company vehicle, was he working at the time?
He was. He was working.
Was there any connection with Mr. Carroll's in the company at all?
No, Mr. Carroll's transient, homeless. You've probably seen him walking the streets several times here.
Do you have any theory on what happened?
I know they didn't show up that day was called. That's not a theory, that's a fact. What happened and why he was in the car, I don't know. We may never know, but we know what did not happen.
What was Mr. Campbell's job?
Tell him his job, okay?
Yes, my husband was into IT. He worked for All Copy Products, so he would be dispatched to various locations, various UC Health hospitals to work on computers, fax machines, whatever they needed. So he was into IT.
Ms. Campbell, I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about your husband. Who was he? What kind of person was he?
Sure. My husband was the most selfless man. The most selfless man. And, I don't know if you all are seeing the things that are being posted about him, but anybody would say that. He's very kind. He's very gentle. A lot of people would call him a gentle giant. He doesn't bother anybody. He's introverted. We're both introverted. So, we live far from this location to just stay away from the busy life because we like a slow life, a quiet life. He doesn't bother anybody. And I was very blessed to have been married to him.
Thank you so much.
Let me say this. This case is also very personal to me. I didn't know Quaylen, but Quaylen is from where I'm from. He went to the University of West Georgia. I'm from Carrollton, Georgia. I grew up in Carrollton, Georgia. In fact, his wife shared a picture, and he was marching the King Day parade with his fraternity, Phi Beta Sigma. I was in that same parade. We had the same barber. I didn't know that. So his mom know people that I know. We're from the same area. We live in the same community. And I think that's the question about the link. I didn't know this at all until I learned it from his wife. So when I look at Quaylen, I see myself. Hardworking, trying to make a living for your family. I know he told his wife he loved her. And he not lost here. He has two beautiful daughters. Two beautiful daughters. And I know it's very difficult for them. But, we ask for the community of Colorado Springs, the nation, to uplift this family. we're not here to, this is not a case where he possibly could have been doing something wrong. This man was trying to earn a living for his family and lost his life. And the police department, Colorado Springs, failed his family. Any questions?
Alina with Fox 21 News. How long were you married to your husband?
7
How did you guys meet?
years. We met at school. We both attended University of West Georgia, and we both are in Greek organizations, and we met through the connection with that.
How long were you at the scene? How long were you at the scene before officers did show up?
Honestly, it's hard to tell. I mean, I was in shock. As I stated, when I first pulled into the parking lot, I was completely in awe that there were no police. And as soon as I saw his car, I parked my car. I didn't even close my door. And here we are in a place where there's homeless people. I had left my car running, my phone, my tablet, my wallet. That's how much I didn't care. I just wanted to make sure that he was okay. And
one thing that I would like to add is the bravery of this woman here. When she got on the scene, the person who shot her husband was still in the car with a gun on his lap. And she made the decision that I'm gonna do everything I can do to try to save my husband's life. And she opened that door and pulled him out. So just the bravery, and it's a testament. It's so meaning. I just want people to understand this is a brave woman here. She's a fighter. She's here for her family, and she's gonna make a difference in this world. So,
I was wondering.
What age?
Oh, sorry. Yes, Aaron Vinatov, KKTV.
Okay.
We've gotten conflicting reports from people claiming to have been there, and I was wondering if you were able to clear up who was there trying to save Quinlan's life.
I know who was there based on. I know she was there to help save his life. She tried to give him CPR, and your uncle. So that's a fact.
Was anybody assisting you?
there were
These two people right here.
there were many other people who obviously were starting to crowd us because I was screaming extremely loud. The police didn't come. My husband is dead. There were people with their phones. Instead of trying to help, they were recording and taking pictures. So these people that you guys have are telling a lie. Nobody else is CPR but myself and my uncle.
Any other questions?
One question. This may be a little bit personal, but did your husband own a firearm? Or was that just kind of random that you saw the gun on the other man's lap there?
I think that question, I appreciate that question, but I think that's a question, one, that's part of the investigation in this particular matter. And I think it's very important that those discussions, those questions need to be had with law enforcement due to the sensitivity of the investigation.
I understand. Thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Could you tell me about your guys' kids, if you're willing?
I'll tell my children. Yeah.
So I have a 4-year-old, her name is Bella, and we have a 14-year-old, her name is Soraya. Our 4-year-old really, really loved him so much. Any video you have of them, you can just see how she just follows him everywhere and just looks him in his eyes. But what I loved the most is that every time he came home from work, that she would jump into his arms as if she hadn't seen him in days. I mean, she was just always excited to see him. He was just such a supportive father, just loving. I mean, if anything happened, and I'll give an example, she busted her chin, just, kids in accidents, she fell, and, I told him, and I'm like, I'm going to the emergency room, and he, was like, well, I'll leave work to do that. I mean, anything we needed, he was always there. He's just the protector, and we no longer have that. And I want people to know that this is an image that's burned in my head that I can never get rid of. It's traumatic. All the blood that was all over me from performing the CPR, I will never be able to get rid of that image, ever. And I shouldn't have had to find him. It was their job to come and save him. Why? An entire hour?
All right, a few more questions. We're gonna wrap it up. Any other questions? Thank you, guys. I appreciate you. You know, I know it seemed like we come to Colorado Springs and send to this spot a lot, but justice need to be had. You know, one thing I can tell you is that this family got a long way to go. Thank you guys for reporting this story, keeping this story out, keeping Quaylen's name out there, and you know, hopefully, as updates come in, we'll let you know. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you.
All right, so you just heard from the lawyers and wife of Quaylen Campbell, who we learned last Friday lost his life in an apparent hostage situation that then turned deadly. We're going to recap, if you are just following this story for the first time, what you missed. But a big part of this news conference and this conversation from his wife, Talisha Campbell, and the lawyers representing the family was this text message. This is what really started it all. I'm going to pull down my super here so you could see it a little better. This was a text message from Quaylen to his wife saying 911, send please, which included a picture of what is believed to be the suspect in this investigation, as well as a location of where Campbell was at the time that this incident occurred. And you can see some of that response from his wife. What's wrong? What do you need me to do? Send me your location. Now, in the news conference, she detailed exactly what she did. She called 911, saying that she understood that her husband was pleading for help, pleading for his life, and she claimed that on that 911 call there was no sense of urgency, that she didn't believe that there was going to be an immediate response from police, so she took it upon herself to drive to that location, worried about her husband, which we of course can all relate to when we hear of a loved one in this unimaginable situation. Drive down to the location, which was at the time less than a mile from the where his wife was, and found her husband. And as she mentioned in this news conference, proceeded to provide him CPR and try to resuscitate him. Unfortunately, Quaylen Campbell did succumb to his injuries. He was apparently, from investigators, tell us that he was shot in the abdomen and bled to death. Now, I'm going to keep some of the hard to hear details, but the biggest takeaway from this news conference, the emotions that his wife relayed, calling this experience traumatic. And you can see her sitting on that bench there just processing this as we approach tomorrow, Friday, which will mark a week since she lost her husband. Campbell, of course, was a father, a graduate of the University of West Georgia, and the couple had actually just moved from Noonan, Georgia, to Colorado Springs just last year. In this news conference, she described him as a quiet and peaceful man, a protector, a father, and a very involved and caring and loving husband and father, for that matter. So this is just a tremendous loss for this family, for friends and loved ones of Quaylen Campbell. And of course, the question remains, and lawyers highlighted this in the news conference. They are asking, why did it take more than an hour when the location sent indicated that he was less than a mile away? And why did Mrs. Campbell have to find her husband? So there's a lot of questions into police response. Again, this text message, really the beginning of all of this. This is very much a developing story. Our sister station out in Colorado Springs, KKTV, is following this very closely. And we are also following along. This is one of our own from Georgia, a local man in Colorado Springs, now had lost his wife and his life, and his wife, of course, expressing that sorrow for her husband. We're going to be following the latest here on our website, atlantanewsfirst.com. And of course, you can download the free Atlanta News First app. We'll send you any major updates, developments on this story and similar stories like these directly to your phone so you don't miss a thing.